Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. Welcome to the daily quiz discussion for the 16th of November 2022. Before we begin, a gentle reminder requesting you to join us live on our YouTube channel at 8 p.m. for the 94th episode of the International Relations This Week session. Beginning with the first question of the day, it reads, consider the following statements about Climate Change Performance Index. There are four question statements given here. The first one reads, it is published by the United Nations Environment Programme. The second statement, the index is assessed based on four factors: greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy adoption, energy use, and climate policy. Statement 3, the latest index for 2023 ranks India 8th among the assessed countries. Statement 4, the first position in the index 2023 is occupied by USA. Which of the above statements are correct? Please have a look at the options given. What is the context? This article from the Indian Express takes note of India moving 2 ranks above in the Climate Performance Index released recently. The Climate Performance Index is published by German Watch, the New Climate Institute, and Climate Action Network. The index uses a standardized framework to compare the climate performance of a group of 59 countries and the European Union, which together account for 92% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. The four main categories used in the index include greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy, energy use, and climate policy. This index has been an instrument to enable transparency in national and international climate politics. The latest Climate Performance Index has put India 8th. This puts India ahead of most developed countries. Note, while China is placed at 51st rank, United States is placed at 52nd rank, both of whom are among the top greenhouse gas emitters in the world. Denmark and Sweden have been assessed to be the top performance this year. Please note, the first 3 ranks have not been allotted to any country at all. Also note, in the year 2020, India ranked 9th on this list, while in 2021 and 2022, India dropped 1 rank to rank 10th. India earns a high rating in the GHG emissions and energy use categories, while its rating has been medium in climate policy and renewable energy. Why is this? Because the index notes that despite the high target set by India for renewable energy adoption, the country is still not on track to meet the targets set for itself. While when it comes to climate policy, India's plan to increase its oil and gas production by over 5% by 2030 does not seem to be in line with its track to meet its 2030 emission targets. With this understanding, let's get back to the question. The first statement is wrong. Why? Because the Climate Change Performance Index is not published by the UNEP. It is published by German Watch, along with New Climate Institute and Climate Action Network. The second statement is correct. The third statement is also correct, while the fourth statement is wrong. Why? Because US is ranked 52nd. Note, no country occupies the first 3 ranks, while Denmark remains the highest ranked country at rank number 4. Since the question asks for the correct statements, the answer to this question would be option B, 2 and 3 only. Moving on to the second question. The question reads, consider the following statements about Ministerial Conference on Countering Financing of Terrorism. There are two question statements given here. The first one reads, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India would be organizing this conference. The second statement, this is the first such conference to be held at the ministerial level to combat terror financing. Which of the above statements is or are correct? Please have a look at the options given. What is the context? This article from the Indian Express takes note of the upcoming third ministerial No Money for Terror conference to be held in India. This conference would be hosted by the Ministry of Home Affairs, and the conference aimed to discuss global trends in terrorism and terror financing, the use of formal and informal channels of funds for terrorism, emerging technologies and terrorist financing, and requisite international cooperation to address such challenges. The conference would see participation from representatives of 75 countries and international bodies. The use of virtual assets or virtual currencies and crowdfunding platforms by terrorist entities would be a major point of discussion, as this has been observed to be a emerging trend in terror financing. Also, dark web would also come up for discussion. The Indian government is also going to discuss the misuse of non-profit organization and non-financial businesses and professions in terror financing. Please note, this is not the first such conference to be held. There have been two previous conferences which have been held in Paris in the year 2018 and Melbourne in the year 2019. This is the third ministerial. Coming back to the question. From our discussion, it is clear that the first statement is correct while the second statement is wrong. Why? Because previously we have had two such ministerial conferences, the first one in Paris in the year 2018 and the second one in Melbourne in the year 2019. Since the question asks for the correct statements, the answer to this question would be option A, one only. Moving on to the third question. The question reads, arrange the following states in order of them attaining full statehood status, starting from the earliest to the latest. There are 6 states mentioned here: Goa, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Meghalaya, Andhra Pradesh, and Nagaland. Please have a look at the options given. What is the context here? This article from the PIB takes note of the Indian Prime Minister greeting people of Jharkhand on the foundation day of the state. Note, Jharkhand became a state on 15th of November 2000 based on the Bihar Reorganization Act of 2000. Jharkhand was part of the Bihar state. Coming back to the question. Goa state came into being in the year 1987. While Gujarat came into being in the year 1960, Gujarat was carved out of the then Bombay state. It was founded based on the Bombay Reorganization Act of 1960. Jharkhand, as previously mentioned, was formed in the year 2000. Meghalaya was founded in the year 1972 based on the Northeastern Areas Reorganization Act of 1971. It was a part of then Assam. Andhra Pradesh was formed in the year 1953, while Nagaland in the year 1963. Based on this discussion, it becomes clear that the answer to this question would be option B. Moving on to the fourth question. The question reads, which of the following statements are correct with respect to India's foreign trade's general trends in the recent past? There are 3 question statements given here. The first one, in the merchandise segment, India imports more than it exports in terms of value. Second statement, in the services segment, India exports more than it imports in terms of value. The third statement, generally, the trade surplus from the services segment is able to cover up the trade deficit in the merchandise segment to result in a net trade surplus for India. Please have a look at the options given. What is the context? This article from the PIB takes note of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry coming up with India's foreign trade statistics for the month of October 2022. Keeping with the general trend, merchandise imports have been greater than exports, while in the services segment, exports have been greater than imports. However, given that the trade deficit in the merchandise segment is much bigger than the trade surplus in services segment, India suffers a net trade deficit. With this understanding, let's get back to our question. From our discussion, it is clear that while statement 1 and 2 are correct, statement 3 is wrong. Hence, the answer to this question would be option A, 1 and 2 only, because the question asks for the correct statements. Moving on to the last question of the day. This is a question from the 2019 UPSC Prelims paper. The question reads, under which schedule of the Constitution of India can the transfer of tribal land to private parties for mining be declared null and void? The 4 options given are A, 3rd schedule, B, 5th schedule, C, 9th schedule, and D, 12th schedule. Note, the Indian Constitution provides autonomy to tribal areas in governance under the 5th and 6th schedule. While the 5th schedule entails provisions relating to administration and control of scheduled areas and scheduled tribes, The sixth schedule entails provisions relating to the administration of tribal areas in states of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. According to the Samanta vs. State of Andhra Pradesh and others judgment of 1997, the Supreme Court declared that the transfer of tribal land to private parties for mining was null and void under the fifth schedule. Hence, the answer to this would be option B, fifth schedule. Moving on to the fact of the day, LeadIT Summit 2022. What is the context? This article from the PIB takes note of India and Sweden hosting the LeadIT Summit 2022 on the sidelines of COP27 in Egypt. In this context, let us understand what is the LeadIT platform. LeadIT stands for Leadership Group for Industry Transition. It aims to gather countries and companies that are committed to action to achieve the Paris Agreement. The initiative focuses on low carbon transition of the hard to abate industrial sector. Sectors such as iron and steel, aluminium, cement and concrete, petrochemicals, fertilizers, bricks, heavy duty transport, etc. It aims to achieve this through active participation of private sector companies. Note, this initiative was launched by the governments of Sweden and India at the UN Climate Action Summit in September 2019, and this initiative is supported by the World Economic Forum. Why is this initiative important? Note, the industry sectors together contribute about 30% of the total CO2 emissions in the world. Hence, this initiative, by its focus on low carbon development pathways in the industrial sector, would be critical to achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. At the recently held summit, the need for low carbon transition was emphasized. And in this direction, co-development of green technology, providing technical assistance to new members and emerging economies were emphasized upon. This is all we have for today's discussion. Thank you for being with us.